One more coming in. Hey. Well, welcome to everybody that is in attendance today and also watching the recording to our third session for teachers. Really geared at the gradebook functionality, but from a beginner's perspective. We're really going to use this series of 4 at the start of the school year to hone in on the basic and core skills of both Buzz and Genius. So keeping that in mind, these are definitely really good for new teaching staff or as review for those of you that are veteran if needed. So we're going to jump right in. One of the things to be reminded of is that these sessions typically build off of each other. So in the 2 previous sessions, we focused on working with vendor content and then Buzz teacher app navigation, which touched on some of the course settings and things like that that you'll hear in some of the language and definitions in this session. After each session, those folks that are registered will get a follow-up email that contains the slides, the recording, and some other tutorial information related to the topic for today. So just keep that in mind and be watching for that if you are registered for this session. So today's objectives are really threefold. The first one is we're going to talk through how to grade student work from the gradebook, the activity grader, and the grade editor. All 3 of those sound like they're the same thing. Lindsay's going to dive into what the difference is between all 3 of those areas, as Buzz really does have 3 separate areas and places that you can grade work. And so understanding those 3 different areas is helpful from both a perspective of you being able to determine which one meets your needs for efficiency. And then also if you're a program leader or even a teacher who has some troubleshooting needs with the system, knowing each of those areas and being able to reference that is helpful to troubleshoot. The second one is looking at different ways to provide feedback on assignments and assessments. So that's going to be really looking at the grade editor area. And then the third piece is understanding the needs grading feature and how student work displays in that space. So basically just this whole session is focused on grading. From an agenda perspective, we're staying consistent here with these sessions where we have the 4 different areas. So we're going to start with some definitions. Again, this is where we're really going to look at, Susan, do you mind muting yourself? We're getting a little feedback. Lindsay, can you, thanks. Where we're really going to look at those 3 different areas of where you can grade and Buzz. For the skill demonstration portion, we're going to show you how you can provide feedback, as there are some efficiencies there and also some different ways that you can provide feedback versus just text. And then from an application point of view, we're going to really look at the needs grading and try to show you how you could apply it to your day-to-day. As always, question and answer section at the end. If you could either type your questions in the chat throughout the session today or just write them down and hold them to the end, we will be having a specific Q&A section at the end of this time. I skipped over introductions. I'm Sammy Mantala, sorry, from Wisconsin eSchool Network, and I'm co-facilitating with Lindsay Luciani, who is also here, and she'll be leading the majority of this session. So again, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. Otherwise, save them for the end and we'll make sure to come back.
All right, let's get started. For today's session, we're mostly going to focus on like 3 specific areas of Buzz, but they all have to do with grading. So for this first slide, I just wanted you, we're going to dive into each of them for sure. And we're going to go into Buzz and take a look, but I'm trying to minimize my flip-flopping back and forth. So this first one, I just wanted it to be clear that we're going to first take a look at the Buzz Gradebook, and then we're going to jump into the activity grader, and then we're going to go into the editor. But the nice part is 2 of them, they do clearly indicate at the top, like I'm in the Gradebook or I'm in the activity grader. It will tell you which one you're in, unless you're in the editor, which is the only one remaining. So first, we're going to dive into the Gradebook. Anytime you're looking for the Gradebook in Buzz, you're going to look for this icon, which kind of looks like a little bar graph. That is an indicator that you'll be accessing the Gradebook. So first, I'm going to kind of go over some of the main points about the Gradebook, and then we'll jump into Buzz, take a look, and then kind of flip-flop back and forth that way. So the Gradebook pretty much provides like a table view of your grade. So you'll have your students in rows, and then the activities in columns, and it's kind of a table of just how they're doing. But the Gradebook itself includes 4 different tabs. So there's like the Gradebook that you see right when that it defaults to when you click into the Gradebook. But there's also sometimes a mastery tab that lets you review the class's objective mastery. But these only appear if objectives have been defined for the course by that specific vendor. There's the unit summary tab, which displays each student's progress in completing all the activities as like one progression. And then it breaks down the activities into their progress for each individual activity. Within the Gradebook itself, you can adjust the display options. You can filter, define specific items, and then the quick edit is a cool feature that I'm going to show you when we jump in here in just a sec. So I'm going to flip over to the Gradebook now. So I'm going to go into Genius as a teacher. Oh, safety, just logging in. Then I'm going to go into Genius as a teacher. I'll always launch into Buzz this way. I'm going to click on my affiliation. I almost said it's Monday, but it's Tuesday. It's a little slow waking up. I'm going to click on Use as Teacher. And now I can look for the Gradebook icon for a specific course. So I'm going to go into this English 1 course, and I could click here, Gradebook, because again, we've talked about this with each of our sessions, that there's a lot of different workflows, but you'll find yours. So I'm trying to just surface your options. So I could click Gradebook here, or I can come up to the pancake icon and click on my course and go to the Gradebook here. We will talk about the needs grading feature, but not quite yet. So I'm going to go into it with the pancake icon. So I'm going to click on English 1, and then I'm going to click on Gradebook. And it takes me right to that table view that we kind of talked about. So I can see my students here in each row, and I can see my activities. Actually minimize this a bit so we can see the bottom. It actually, what I've noticed about Buzz too, is that if I would leave off, I would actually log out of Buzz and I would be here. The next time I access the Gradebook, it would start me in this view. So I would start at 1.06. So knowing that there's this bar on the bottom can be helpful if you're confused when you first kind of access about where you are. These are the tabs that you have available to you. The Mastery tab. This course does have objectives aligned with it. So you will see this view here. Some courses may not, depending on the vendor. The unit summary will show you like a student's progression within the whole course, and then for each individual activity. The For Me tab is another tab, but the items in this tab are going to come in a later session. So I'm not even going to touch on it, but it is there. You will see it, but it's some things that we're going to cover in our advanced gradebook session later on in November, I believe. So in the gradebook, you do have the ability to customize your display. So you click on this cog up in the top right. You can determine which items you want to see, which columns you want visible, which footers, score display. So some things that are useful that I found are like last login. So you can see when the student last was actually active in the course or logged into the course, excuse me. You might want to do, like some people will adjust this, the score display. Again, this is just how you see the gradebook. It won't change how the students view the gradebook. Another thing that I might decide I don't need the score or letter grade is fine. So once you make those adjustments, you click save. And now you'll notice that up here, I can see that the student last logged in here or here or here. I can see those specific dates. So that's kind of a nice feature when you're working in your gradebook. Another feature that's kind of nice is the side that you can filter with these, kind of like an upside down triangle of lines. So if you click here, then you can search for certain things, certain items that need to be graded. And then a feature that I really like is the lightning bolt. What this does is right now, if I would click on a cell, like where a student's name meets an activity, let's say this one where it says 30%, if I would click on that, it would open up to the grade editor, but that's not what I want. I want the ability just to enter grades right from here. So if I click on the lightning bolt, it turns red, and then it allows me to enter grades directly from this screen. So I could go through and assign point values for whatever I need. And then when I'm done, I would just click the lightning bolt, and now it goes back, but those grades are applied. So that's a feature that I find to be kind of helpful. That is the grade book. So the Buzz grade book. I'm going to jump back into our slides now to go over the activity grader. All right. And it did take me a while to differentiate the titles of each of these. So, you know, it's not as important to know what it's called, but to know what its functionality is. So the activity grader allows you to access and edit all student scores for one specific activity. So you can click on the name of the activity, like in the header of the column, to get to the activity grader. And then the activity grader itself has two tabs. The first tab is just going to be a list of all your students, and then that one activity or assignment. And then the other tab is actually just some analytics. So it will kind of give you some frequency of scores and grades. It'll show you some statistics. And if it's an assessment, you can actually review the question details there. And then those can be printed, like for sharing maybe during a parent-teacher conference or whatever it might be. You do have the ability to adjust the display options and quick edit again, but there are a couple more tools that are available in the activity grader that are not available in the main gradebook. So we'll jump in and take a look at those now. So if I'm on the gradebook, from here, I can decide to like dial down deeper into a specific activity. So I might click on this activity header. And then I can see it says activity grader. So now here I can see I have my students and just the score for this one particular assignment. And then I can see this happens to be an assessment, I believe. And then I can see who's completed it and who has not. So from here, there's two tabs. You have the activity grader itself and then the analytics. And this is information about, you know, frequency of scores, specific questions, and then the alignment to certain objectives, and then proficiency. So you do have the ability to print this kind of report if you wanted to, or download an email home if needed. Back to the activity grader tab, you do have the ability again to customize this display. So if I would click on display options for this one, in this certain case, I don't love seeing the last login. Like I just want to see the student and the score. So I'd maybe turn this off for the activity grader. And that's probably it. And then I'll click save. Now I can just see the student, if they did it, and the score. So that's kind of helpful. Another thing is you can click on a student's name directly from the activity grader, and it'll take you right to the grade editor from there, which we'll get into in a second. But that's just kind of helpful. All right, next, we will jump into the grade editor. So the grade editor, we've kind of mentioned a few times, but this is the space where you can make changes to a student's score on a specific activity. There's a lot of different ways to get there. You can, like where those two where the assignment and the student's name meet on the table, you can click on that and you'll access the grade editor. You can get there from clicking on the student's name in the activity grader. or you can get there from the needs grading icon, which we'll show you later on the application component. The grade editor consists of two panels. There's a student panel on the left and a grading panel on the right. I'm not going to list these off because we'll go over these in just a second. But then within the grading panel itself, this is where you can kind of adjust some of the score things or kind of make your workflow a little bit easier. So this is for reference mostly, so that when you're going back and looking at these materials after this session, you can kind of recall what some of the things we talked about were. So I'm going to actually jump into Buzz now to go over these a little bit more rather than read them to you and then show you. All right. So if I want to access the grade editor, I can click on the student's name, but I tend to I don't know why, click on the actual place where they meet. So I'll click right here where it says 30%. And it will open up the grade editor. The grade editor gives me a ton of information on a student's assignment. So right here, I can see that this is the student, Michelle. It'll tell me the course, the specific activity, the targeted due date, when the student actually submitted. And then it even gives me like a time from that point. So it was 13 days and 9 hours after the due date. And then it tells me like how much time the student actually spent on that assignment or assessment. The questions then are here. It defaults to the content tab. So I can go down and I can look. As the teacher though, you still have the ability to adjust these points. So I might, this question 4, I might think or know as the teacher, well, I can see why they thought it was this or this answer instead of this one. So maybe you want to award them 2.5 points. You can make those adjustments as you go through because you'll know your students best. Then there's some other tabs up here in the left panel. There's the score and activity history.
Lindsay, will you go back to the content area? Sorry.
Yep.
The only thing I wanted to point out was in this case, it looks like this quiz is all system graded. When there are questions that are like short answer or that the teacher needs to provide feedback and assign points to that, the system will actually scoot those to the top so that the teacher sees them as like the first few questions instead of having to continually scroll through the questions to find the ones where they need to provide feedback. So that's kind of a nice thing that the system does.
And good to note, because it's not that they were out of order or anything. They're purposefully bringing them to the top so that you don't have to hunt for them within the different questions. Thanks. Then I went over, this one shows the score and activity history, submission history. So I can see this student submitted this once. And then you can compare it to the class. In this case, it's a demo. So I'm only comparing the one other student that I did the quick edit for. But then if there are objectives, for the course, you can see kind of progression related to those here as well. On the right side, sometimes when you first log into this might look up here like this. That's because the grade panel is collapsed. So you'll just need to click on this little triangle and it will open it up. But once you do it one time, it tends to stay open. On the top, there are some things that you can do related to the score. You can use these quick buttons, I guess, overall. You can click full credit, automatically adjust and give the student full credit. If you click no credit, it will give the student a 0 for a score. When this happens, it is actually giving the student a score. So they won't appear as missing an assignment because it actually has a point value. It's 0. If you want the assignment to appear as missing or that it hasn't been completed yet, you can click clear and then it gives them no score. So that's kind of those buttons.
Jump in on that for a second.
Yep.
Sorry. The reason that Lindsay's bringing this up, and it's really important, is that as you look at some of the information that Genius, not Buzz, but even Buzz to an extent, provides for both you as a program leader and a teacher is sometimes pacing information. So like student is 3 assignments behind, right? If you went in as a teacher and for their missing work entered 0s or did the no credit that Lindsay just pointed out, that work is no longer going to be reported as missing because the teacher assigned the student a score. So that will mess with the way that the data is still appearing correctly. It's just the interpretation of what was done becomes a little tricky. So it's just something to think through. And if you're unsure, I would encourage you to reach out to your local program leader and see if you have a local policy related to putting in zeros for students with missing work.
Thank you. After you click on all those buttons, if you decide, you know what, no, I just want to go with whatever the score was that was calculated, you can click this revert to calculated and it'll go right back. A couple other options, you can save a draft. Like if you're not sure you want to like submit this grade back to the student, you can click here. Otherwise, you can go ahead and you can submit the score. A couple other options you have are to excuse the assignment. What this does is this does put an X in the gradebook indicating that the assignment was excused, but it doesn't count the assessment or activity into the student's overall grade. You can allow a retry. So if you think, I think the student can do a better job, or they, spent 18 seconds on it, they should give it a little more time, you can allow a retry. We did have a great Buzz teacher tip though, that anytime you're going to allow a retry, it's a really good practice to add a little note, just kind of explaining, like, it might be just because the student took the pre-test earlier than you wanted, but just a note explaining why they need to retry whatever the activity is super helpful. Or you can click on override. So what an override will do, is override any requirements that you've put in place. So you may have check the setting that like this particular activity needs to be complete before a student can move on. If you have, like you might have a face-to-face meeting with the student or a synchronous meeting with the student and you realize they've already met the standard or they've shown proficiency on whatever the topic might be and you don't want them to have to complete this, you can override and allow them to move on. So that's what this button takes care of. Next, I'm going to flip back to our slides to kind of go over the feedback area quickly, and then we'll jump back in and take a look. So the reason that I tend to lean towards the grade editor, or that tends to be like my grading area of choice, is because of the ability to provide feedback. And what's different I've noticed about Buzz than like when I was grading in like Google Classroom or something was the ability to add different types of feedback so easily. So you have the ability, you're going to see a text box. You can type a message just like anything, like an email, and you have your features like bold and font colors and those kind of things, but it also has the ability to add emojis, which students tend to like. You can link, but the drawing feature is great. I'm going to show you that in just a second. You can actually insert a YouTube video right here, but you can also provide video and audio feedback to students, like on the spot that'll display right in this feedback space. So that's really nice. You can insert templates, and we're going to go over those in just a second. And you can even like add attachments for students to see as well. There's another space too where you can add like a private note that the student can't see, but you could see. So you may want to remind yourself that the student struggled a bit with Unit 1 until you explained such and such, or if it's an English class, which mine happens to be, it might be something to do with plagiarism, maybe keep an eye, this looks similar, whatever it might be. There's a space to write something that the student cannot see, only you can. Another teacher tip we did receive though was that one teacher always puts like a little indicator up here in this feedback box anytime she has written herself a note below to remind herself, because that grade panel can get really long. So kind of just an indicator, like look below, there's another note there. So I thought that was helpful. This particular teacher puts like a little asterisk by her name, so it doesn't look obvious or anything, but it's just like her visual clue to like, oh, scroll down and look at your private note because you've written something there. So I thought that was a helpful one. Again, this slide just is kind of like a layout, and it's more for you to kind of go back and look at as reference or related to the feedback panel. So I'm going to jump back into Buzz so we can take a look. So if I'm coming into my grade editor, I want to leave some feedback for my student, I can just say, hello, Michelle, student's name. But you have the ability to bold, italicize, all your typical, you can insert emojis, whatever they might be. But the draw feature I felt like was really helpful, especially from like anchor charts for younger elementary students, a lot of math visuals. So we used to do something called like fact families or fact triangles. And I would need the ability to draw a triangle. This is a space where you can put in a triangle, and then you have the ability to use the pencil. You can even insert text if you wanted to say like the number 2. I might want to put this here. If that, for me, I'm like, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to try to draw. So 2, 5, and 10 would be a fact family. And then I could remind the student of this. So I could save that change, and then that would insert right into my feedback space, which I thought would be really helpful. Just a lot of possibilities there. Another option is you can insert video. So right now, because I'm in this already using my camera, I don't believe it'll let me record, but you could record yourself giving your student feedback just right on the spot. You can also upload video that you have created previously, and it'll appear right in this space. I know that I can do it with the audio. So the same thing applies for inserting audio. So right now, while I'm talking to you, if I wanted to record this as my feedback, it will let you record an audio clip, and then you can insert it. It takes a little bit to load, but it will be there. I'll give it just a second, then I can kind of give you a little demonstration of that. A couple other features that are really nice are the equations. So like if you teach math or science or whatever it might be, you have the ability to either look up symbols or you can insert them below. So here, but if I am up here, it's really nice. If I would write 10 divided by, just by writing div, it knows that that's what I'm looking for. So then I can go 5 and just type equals, and it'll actually insert equations. Now that we've done that, it looks like this one is loaded. So if I push play, while I'm talking to you, if I wanted to record this as my feedback, it will I don't know if you guys can hear, but it just was me talking to you, but it inserts it right there for the student to listen to. So sometimes when you're trying to explain a concept to a student, typing just can take a long time, or you can lose some of that tone. So being able to record it as an audio clip or a video can be super helpful. And then there's the ability to insert a table and then make this an actual like full screen text editor, which can be nice. All right, next we're going to kind of take a look at templates, which are really helpful if you find yourself typing the same type of feedback to students often. So I'm going to jump back into the slides. Feedback templates can be used to help streamline your grading process and your feedback process, because many of you may have realized when you're working with students in an online platform and they're using like Google documents to share, you might find yourself saying often like, did you look at your Google Share settings? Or, please remember to complete and then reattach, because sometimes people will attach things that are blank. So just kind of some things you end up saying over and over. It's helpful to make a template so you don't have to type those out every time. Another thing that's really great about templates is that you can create template groups. So you can see here in this little screenshot of mine, I have a template group of English 1. I have one that's general course templates, and then I have positive. But I was talking with another teacher that teaches, in Buzz, and she had a lot of positive templates, which wasn't where my brain went initially. Like I was thinking of all the things that I might want to correct a student on. And then I really liked her outlook on like positive templates. So to create a template in in Buzz is super easy. There's a space right below that says edit templates, and then you can create a template or create a group. You can pick a title, give it a group, and then you can type your message. Again, this is hopefully you can use this as reference, but I'm going to jump back into Buzz to kind of show you this. I'm going to remove some of this stuff. So I could pick one that I've already created, or I can decide I want to create a new one. The ones you've already created will show up here. If you click edit templates, I'm going to click leave because you don't really leave. Here you can create a group or you can create a template. I've already created some groups, but when you do that, it just looks like, you know, create the group and then done. I'm going to create a template, and then you can say, you know, you can give it a title, you can pick a group. This might be for all course, and then you can type whatever it is you want to remind your students of, or whatever the template might be. It might be, like I was saying before, remember to double check your attachments to make sure they're the completed attachment before submitting, and so on. I'm going to cancel this one because I already have quite a few, but I'll show you what it looks like when you then use them. If I would come down here to, let's do this one, Google Share. In this one, I actually inserted some images. So I just said, please be sure you have set your Google Share settings. And then that's something I might find that I say often, so I can put it in here, and then that the student will see that. Another thing that's helpful is that you can use replacement variables in your template. So I'm going to open one of these up again. Take a look at this English one. So if you notice, I have hi, and then I have $, enrollment first, $. What that does is that will, anytime I use this template, it will replace this variable with the student's first name because it's enrollment first. When you create a template, it lists the actual replacement variables on the bottom that you can use. And then I'm going to go ahead now and use this template so you can see how it replaces the name. So I'm going to come over here, English 1, pretest redo, and you can see it says, hi, Michelle, because that's the student's name, Michelle. And then it says, please redo the pretest and resubmit. Thanks. So that's how you can create and utilize templates. But most teachers that I've met with or talked to find these to be really helpful after you set them up. And you can even create them as you go, as you find yourself making more and more of the same types of comments. A couple of other things in the grading panel are the returned attachments. So you can choose a file or choose a Google Doc that you may want to attach along with your feedback and score. And then again, that private note space.
Lindsay,
Okay.
can I add just a note about the variables?
Yep.
So I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume that they are underused. Those variables that appear when you go to create a template, like Lindsay showed.
I can do it.
Yeah. They actually, and we can follow up with there's well more than just these, but the variables can actually be used in other places throughout Buzz. So your course landing page, if you create like an introductory welcome letter and you do it in Buzz in your teacher digital filing cabinet, and you used a variable there, no matter what course you put that welcome letter in, like welcome Susie, right? It will always appear with the student's name. So it actually kind of like tailors the content to be a little bit more personalized for them. So just something to look into down the road.
Yep. It is nice though, when you're creating a template, they do have them down here. So like if you don't remember, you don't use them often enough, it does show you the 4 that you can use within the templates themselves. All right, I'm going to jump back into our slides. The last area we're going to touch on is the application piece, and this is utilizing the needs grading feature directly from your teacher app or your Buzz teacher app homepage. I kind of commented on in the beginning that we would look at it at the end more. Right on the teacher homepage, there's like 2 buttons, quick and easy buttons for teachers. There's the needs grading and then the announcements. The needs grading area allows you to access the grade editor directly for any activity or any graded activity that any student has turned in across any of your active courses. So it's a comprehensive view. There are some filtering options and such, and we'll take a look at that in just a second, but it's a really helpful way to kind of get right into that grade editor and get to the space where you can give students authentic feedback. I find it to be really helpful. So again, it's a comprehensive view and will only display notifications though for assignments or assessments that require your attention. So some of the assessments are multiple choice completely and they're auto graded. So when things are auto graded, there won't be like a little red indicator number unless there's something specific that you need to answer or that you need to contribute before the grade is populated. Another teacher tip related to the needs grading feature was to utilize the search filter tool on the left side of the student panel. And I'll show you that now. There's almost like 2 filtering options when you're looking at the needs grading. So if you're all the way out in Buzz, on your home page, when you first log in, you'll see the needs grading kind of quick icon right there. If I would go ahead and click, it now shows me the grade editor, but it adds another additional panel on the left that just lists all the different activities and assignments, things that I need to grade across all of my courses, active courses in Buzz right now, and all students. I do have the ability to filter up here. This just lets me filter by course. So I could just if I only want to see English 1 assignments, I could do that. So it doesn't have to stay comprehensive. I'm going to go back to all courses though. This other filter or almost search bar over here does allow you to search for specific words. So if I wanted to look at maybe only labs, I could type in the word lab and only the lab related activities would populate. So, and you could type in even a student's name. In this case, they're all the same student, but you could see everything from a specific student. So I thought that was a really nice feature. But other than that, you can go through and you have all the same things available to you that you would see in any grade editor. So you have your feedback area, your templates, your attachments, your private notes, everything else you can see. It's like a one-stop shop. So that's why I found this to be the area that I kind of tended to go to. A couple of other things here is that you can, if you click on an activity, you can still kind of bump out and go to the activity grader for whichever activity you have selected, if you want to like dive in more and take a different look. So you can do that right from the needs grading area as well. All right, that pretty much wraps up the application part. Sammy, do you have anything you wanted to add related to that?
No, I do not.
All right, then I'll stop the recording and we can do questions. All right.
I did not see any questions in the chat. Does anybody in attendance have questions that they'd like to surface about any of the features that were covered today? Lindsay, it looks like you're still recording.